On the 9th of October 2019, the Arizona Department of Transportation closed a 7-mile stretch of State Route 88, the mountain road east of Phoenix known as the Apache Trail, between milepost 222 at the Fish Creek Hill Overlook and milepost 229 at the Apache Lake Turnoff. Road closures happen every day in Arizona. They end. This one didn't. The barricades stood for 5 years, through lawsuits threatened and petitions signed and nearly 1,700 public comments filed, and when the state finally let vehicles back onto those miles in September 2024, it did so under signs that read, in capital letters, "Caution, primitive road, no trailers, four-wheel drive, and UTVs only." Understand what that sign actually says. The highway that closed in 2019, the one your grandmother could drive in a Buick, has never reopened, and there is currently no funded plan that brings it back. What reopened is something else wearing its number. Why Arizona closed the Apache Trail, and why the road that existed for a century is still, in every meaningful sense, gone, is a story about fire, water, money, and a mountain range that finally called in a debt it had been carrying since 1905. Because to understand the closure, you have to understand what this road was built to survive and what it wasn't. The Apache Trail was carved between 1903 and 1905 as a haul road for the construction of Theodore Roosevelt Dam, cut into the canyons of the Superstition Mountains by crews of about 400 laborers, many of them Apache men working with hand tools and black powder, so that mule teams could drag cement and machinery 60 miles into the wilderness. The dam was finished in 1911, the largest masonry dam in the world, the foundation of modern Phoenix, and the haul road, instead of being abandoned, was handed to tourists. It became State Route 88 in 1927 without ever really being rebuilt, which means the 21st century inherited, as a numbered state highway, a road engineered for animals walking at 2 miles an hour. Pavement eventually reached Tortilla Flat, population 6, but east of there the road stayed dirt, one lane in places, hanging on the wall of Fish Creek Canyon, descending 1,000 feet on grades near 10% around the blind hairpins of Fish Creek Hill. Before the closure, an average of 232 vehicles a day drove that stretch, sedans and rental cars and motorhomes, protected by nothing but low speed and good luck. The road's margin for catastrophe was always thin. In the summer of 2019, the mountains erased it in 2 moves. Move 1 was fire. In June, a human-caused blaze called the Woodbury Fire burned for a month through the Superstition Wilderness, consuming nearly 124,000 acres, one of the largest wildfires in Arizona history, and stripping the steep slopes above the Apache Trail down to bare, hydrophobic dirt. Move 2 was water. That September, the remnants of a Pacific hurricane pushed heavy rain across the burn scar, and with nothing left to hold the mountainsides moved. Debris flows funneled down the drainages that crossed the road. Boulders the size of trucks came to rest on Fish Creek Hill. Culverts that had managed a century of ordinary storms were gutted, retaining walls undermined, whole sections of roadbed torn out, and the rock faces above the road left cracked and hanging like unswung hammers. The state closed mileposts 222 to 229, said the closure was indefinite, and discovered that indefinite is a word the public hears as temporary and a budget office hears as permanent. Here is where the story stops being about weather and becomes about arithmetic. The damaged miles run through a federal easement in the Tonto National Forest, meaning every repair needed U.S. Forest Service review and environmental clearance before a single boulder could be moved. The road generated no freight, served no town bigger than Tortilla Flat, and duplicated a route that already existed, since travelers could reach Roosevelt Lake on modern pavement via State Route 188. And when ADOT finished its formal study in October 2023, after years of analysis and extensive public involvement, the number came back. Restoring the Apache Trail as a road for ordinary vehicles, resilient enough to survive the next fire and flood cycle, would cost $33.7 million. The state did not have it. The federal government has not yet provided it. Think about that figure against the road's own history for a moment. The entire original Mesa to Roosevelt Hall Road cost roughly $500,000 in 1905. The bill to properly resurrect 7 miles of it now runs to nearly 70 times that, and the request sits in funding queues while the burn scar keeps shedding rock every time it rains. Meanwhile, the closure was quietly strangling the places the road had kept alive. Apache Lake Marina, reachable from the west only by the closed section, watched its Phoenix side traffic vanish. Tortilla Flat became the end of the line instead of a waypoint, its famous saloon serving a dead-end road. Hikers, cyclists, and horseback riders adopted the empty miles, walking down the center line of Fish Creek Hill past the boulders, and a generation of Phoenix drivers began aging out of the memory of ever having driven the loop at all. The public did not accept this gracefully. Arizonans flooded the study with comments, the overwhelming message being reopen it, and politicians periodically demanded action, and the answer kept coming back in the bloodless language of infrastructure triage: unfunded. What broke the stalemate in the end was a compromise that concedes the original road may never return. In January 2024, ADOT presented the State Transportation Board with an interim plan, $4 million, roughly a tenth of the real fix, to make the closed miles merely passable rather than actually restored. Contractors started on July 22, 2024. They broke up the boulders on Fish Creek Hill and used the rubble to fill the erosion scars, patched the historic retaining walls, stabilized the worst of the rockfall between the Overlook and Fish Creek Bridge, cleaned and replaced culverts, and hung the new signs. In September 2024, 5 years after the flood, the gates opened, and the state engineer Greg Byers chose his words with the care of a man describing exactly what had and had not been achieved. "We understand Apache Trail's place in the hearts of many Arizonans," he said, "and are proud to have restored this limited access for people with the proper vehicles." Limited access. Proper vehicles. ADOT's own guidance says the quiet part in plain print. Conditions on this stretch can change after every rainfall, and the road you find may not resemble the road that was there before the last storm. So the title of this video is not a technicality. It is the actual situation. Arizona closed the Apache Trail in 2019, and the Apache Trail, the state highway that any licensed driver in any car could take from the edge of metropolitan Phoenix to Roosevelt Dam, has never reopened. What exists today is an honest artifact, a 1905 mule road legally downgraded to match its true nature, open only to high-clearance four-wheel drives and side-by-sides, no trailers, no exceptions, while the $33.7 million plan that would resurrect the highway waits for money that may never arrive, and the mountains above it, still scarred from the Woodbury fire, continue their patient program of throwing rock at the question. There is a real possibility, unspoken in the press releases, that the interim road is the final road, that the primitive road signs are not a phase but an ending, and that 2019 will stand as the year the automobile era on Fish Creek Hill quietly closed after 93 years. If you have the vehicle for it, go and read that ending yourself. Take the pavement east from Apache Junction past Canyon Lake, stop at Tortilla Flat where the population still fits on one porch, and continue to the Overlook at milepost 222, where the warning signs stand and the asphalt gives way to graded dirt. Below you, Fish Creek Canyon opens like something split with an axe, and the road drops into it along the same ledges the Apache crews blasted out with black powder, while the dam they were serving was still a set of drawings. Drive it slowly, yield uphill, and notice what $4 million looks like. Fresh culvert grates, patched stone walls, raw rock faces netted and scaled, boulder fragments packed into the washouts, repairs laid over 1905. Then look up at the slopes, gray-black where the fire passed, thin green where the desert is trying again, and understand that everything you are driving on exists in the pause between storms. Roosevelt Dam still stands at the end of the road, still holding back the Salt River, still watering the 5 million people of a metropolis that this road made possible, and that has, by any honest accounting, moved on without it. The city got the water. The dam got the glory. The road got a closure order, a decade of committee meetings, and a sign warning you it is primitive, which, after everything, is simply the truth arriving late. The superstitions never signed the easement. They have been foreclosing on it, rock by rock and storm by storm, since the day the last mule team went home, and Arizona, after a century of arguing, has finally started negotiating the terms of surrender.